This is a kelp forest exhibit. At 28 feet, this is the tallest aquarium exhibit in the world. The first to recreate a living kelp environment. The kelp forest, like all the exhibits here, represent a particular habitat of Monterey Bay. The giant kelp needs the constant back and forth flow of seawater to live. Special surge pumps had to be engineered to recreate the natural motion of the sea. The beautiful underwater kelp forest is a sight usually only seen by divers. Divers enter this tank too, to feed the fish and answer questions of visitors. Dan, this is a huge tank. Just how big is this tank?
Oh, it's quite big. It holds about 300,000 gallons.
300,000?
Of water, of seawater.
Well, what's that thing there? What's that thing? Right here in front of you, right in front of your head. Look up, right there.
That's a...
Looks like an eel.
Yeah, I don't know the name of that fish. It's kind of a rare one. It lives in the kelp.
Yeah, it looks like a kelp fish.
Exactly. The way that it hides is by hiding in the kelp leaf.
Looks just like the kelp. A lot of fish have good camouflage, it looks like.
Extremely, yes. That's how they survive.
Animals that look like plants? I wanted to find out more about that. I found Mark Ferguson feeding some strange food to some even stranger animals. Mark, I noticed when I go to the ocean, there's all kinds of little creatures on the floor. Are these things alive?
Most of them are. There's a mixture of plants and animals, but a lot of things you might think are plants are really animals, like the white plumose anemone in back of me. Jack, these anemones can live to perhaps over 100 years.
100 years?
Yes.
They look so fragile, though.
They are mainly made out of water. There's very little substance to them. One interesting aspect of the anemones is that they can sometimes shrink down to almost nothing. Some of the small white discs in back of me are the same animals that you see fully extended.
So those little white blobs there on that rock are those big anemones?
Those could be the same size maybe an hour from now if they decide to open.
And what about a, look like a crab or look weird hanging on top of this plant?
That might have been the basket star. It's a relative of the starfish, but instead of just having 5 arms, it has maybe hundreds. When an animal will touch one of these tendrils, the tendrils will ball up around it and surround the animal, and then gradually it will work its way to the mouth underneath the animal.
When I was a kid, I was always afraid of one animal, the octopus. I know now that it was probably a wrong idea, but I thought I'd find out for sure at the aquarium. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has the giant Pacific octopus, the largest octopus species in the world. Tim, this thing looks real, vicious. Can you touch him?
Oh, sure, you can touch him.
No, you go touch him first.
Okay. Here we go. They're actually pretty gentle and docile.
Wow. Just how smart is an octopus?
Very smart. They're thought to be one of the smartest invertebrates alive today.
Huh.
Yes.
Well, they got a big brain?
They're not a real big brain, but they're able to process information visually and tactily also.
Now, a minute ago, I saw this octopus changing colors. Was I seeing things?
No, you aren't. That's its largest organ is its skin, and within its skin is chromatophores. Chromatophores are little sacs with ink in it, and they're able to contract those or expand them, and that changes its color.
Well, look at that. He's bright red now.
It can change color within a second.
And that's a means of defense?
To camouflage, it's also used in mating.
With all those arms, a female couldn't get away, could she?
No, but anything that moves in front of them, they consider food, so they do use their color to help the female identify them.
Boy, do you think I can ever feed one of these?
You can give it a try. There's some food there.
Looks like we're feeding its cousin to it.
Yeah, it is its cousin, but it does eat its cousin.
Oh.
Come here, baby. Come here. Come here.
I don't love this octopus. I wish I could take him home.
Since 1984, the Monterey Bay Aquarium has been a rescue center for abandoned or orphaned sea otter pups. Sea otters were once plentiful along the coast of California, but heavy hunting for their fur brought them near extinction. Today, their numbers have begun to come back, but every otter pup is precious. 4 of the early successes of the program are now residents of the aquarium, every day delighting visitors with their play.
They're extremely playful. The ice cubes that were fed on the exhibit are just freshwater ice cubes, and our 4 resident otters really like them. It's just something fun to them.
A baby sea otter is almost completely helpless. The first problem the aquarium had to solve was how to wean a sea otter pup and keep it alive in captivity. The second, much more difficult problem was how to raise the otter so that it could be returned to the wild. In nature, the baby otter depends on its mother for everything: nutrition, protection, and learning the skills it'll need to survive. If it's to survive in the wild, it needs to know basic skills, things like cracking open shells to get at food. So otter care specialists began acting as surrogate mothers for the orphaned pups. Bonding and trust were developed. The goal was the release of these otters back into the bay, and the program has been remarkably successful.
I can't. Will she eat that?
Oh yeah,
Oh
you'll
my
see
gosh.
the next
When one of the released otters suddenly swam into the bay, Julie and I hurried over to see it.
Pounded on the rocker.
Yeah.
That is a big one. She scored.
Hope it doesn't bite her.
No, it won't. Watch, she'll bang it on the rockwork at some point, I bet. Yeah.
She's a lot.
You really scored. That is huge crowd. I mean, look at the pictures on it.
Now this one was raised here. This
Yeah, April came in 1989, and we released her in 90. And she was an orphan pup that washed up on the beach, and we spent many days swimming with her in the tide pool in the ocean as part of her training. But we actually spent 42 days round the clock out here. The volunteers and staff slept on this rock here with her.
you released her in this pool here.
Yeah. Well, see, April, I can't remember if we released her right here in the tide pool. I think we released her right over here on the backside of the aquarium at Hopkins Beach. And here it is, basically a year later.
Yeah.
She's been in this tide pool every day
Every day.
since her release.
And she finds her own food.
Yes. The first month and a half,
Right,
we did supplement her. One day we just noticed that she was going out and foraging on her own, so we cut the food out and realized she could take care of herself.
What a story.
So-
That's neat. I mean, just for me to stand here as a visitor to Monterey Bay Aquarium and be able to see a sea otter in the wild and go back inside and see one in a tank, there's no place in the world you could do that except right here.
Exactly. These are called moon jellyfish. They're not really fish at all. They're jellies, and they're related to corals and sea anemones. They have stinging cells, as sea anemones and corals do. And you can see a similarity in appearance in that they're symmetrical in a circular sense, and they have a mouth in the center of a ring of tentacles. And the main difference is that these are able to move around and swim around, whereas anemones are attached the other way around on the surface of the corals or rocks. It's a very simple kind of jet propulsion. They're pushing water away from them. They have a muscle system that allows the edge of their belt to contract, so they can push the water back and swim forward. They don't have a real brain. They have a nerve net, a very simple kind of nervous system, and they can sense light and dark, and they can tell up from down. These moon jellies are found right out here, right off the aquarium in Monterey Bay, and they're also found all over the world. These could be classified as predators. You can always tell a hungry jellyfish by looking at its tentacles. When they're very fine and stretched out very far, it means they're searching for food as they're swimming around. You can see a cloverleaf pattern on the back of the animal, 4 ring-like structures, and that's where the food is eventually digested and passed on to the rest of the body. One of my favorite things about this exhibit is standing behind people as they're watching and listening to the comments that they make. And some of the best things I've heard include people referring to them as lampshades or silent fireworks as they pulsate, as they swim, as they stretch their tentacles out. They do look like silent explosions. And a lot of people refer to them as a water ballet. They like the beautiful dance that they do as they swim. There have been some great science fiction movies where they use jellyfish-like creatures as aliens. They seem very alien in appearance.
Oh, look at that. He's right below us. Yeah.
You're not going to get any better look at an otter than
Look
that.
at that.
Oh,
You've got to be so proud to be working with the aquarium.
Oh, I'm so proud of this aquarium. They've done such a magnificent job.
It's so hard because you just want to reach out and touch him, don't you?
Oh, do you? Do you know the feeling of anybody?
Oh, I know.
does
It's
that?
just terrible. It's like, I can't stand it here.
Oh,
All what happened to us, we jumped in the water, Betty.
just slip in quietly. I bet nobody'd notice it around here, do you think? When I first started coming up here as a kid, I remember going over to Point Lobo State Park and the ranger driving through in his truck saying, sea otter, because they never saw them. And the rangers even knew how rare they were. So he pointed them out to us. Well, now you can go over to Lobos and see otters, wild otters, anytime you want.
So they seem to come back then.
So they've managed to bring them back. He's turned it around. Come on, baby. Come on.
I mean, you could literally sit here for hours and watch these. The Monterey Bay Aquarium sits on a section of Monterey called Cannery Row, made famous in part by the novels of John Steinbeck. In those novels, Steinbeck's central character, Doc, was based on a real-life marine biologist named Ed Ricketts, who lived and worked here in the 1930s and 40s. His ideas inspired a generation of biologists and environmentalists. What Ricketts concluded as he studied the life of the bay was that no living thing could be understood in isolation. That in order to understand something, you have to understand how it lives, and that means understanding a complex web of interaction and interdependency. This idea that the animals and plants of the earth all interrelate is such an important one for our time. What we do to one species may affect all the others.
Anheuser-Busch Theme Park's Conservation Moment. The pledge made real.
Penguins also have blubber. So we're going to have our slide our flippers right in through there. At SeaWorld, we have an education program that I feel is very important. Not only do we teach the students about the animals that live in the ocean, but we also teach the students about the consequences that they can have on those animals. Does anybody know what this is?
Net.
This is a discarded fishing line. I'm going to pass this around. And how do you think a penguin could get hurt by this fishing line?
Because it might get caught on it when it comes up for air.
Right, it might get caught in this, and that could keep the penguin underneath the water. One of the things that we try to teach the students is that a balloon or trash that gets in the water can move around through the ocean currents and can actually, over years, wind up in different lands, including the Antarctic. Could this balloon wind up in Antarctica?
Yeah.
It's it's possible. The students that are coming through the education program that we're reaching nowadays are much better educated about the consequences they have on the environment. The words recycling and reusing and reducing are in their vocabulary much more so than when I was growing up. I think that the fact that the students know more about recycling is going to have a very good effect on the environment. By learning about these things at a very early age, they can then pass that on as they grow older, when they begin to vote, when they have more of a consequence on the environment. And we try to teach all age groups how their actions, by throwing trash on the ground, how it can affect animals all over the world.
Anheuser-Busch Theme Park's conservation moment. The pledge made real.